This is Daily December 2022, day 4. I am for 4 days into Daily December and it is already kicking my ass. Real quick, because I have no voice today. I need to change this is something. Boom. Okay. So, I should be slightly a little louder now. So, first things for first, no cookie cover today. My voice is still not to the point where I could effectively sing anything. And that's actually something I want to talk about. For those of you that have been watching Daily December, you may have noticed the two songs that I've covered weren't particularly impressive. I don't mean to say like I was really bad or anything, or I can't sing or anything like that. Not that at all. But if someone was just kind of browsing the internet and they found one of my videos, nothing on it would make them go, wow, or I'd like to hear that again. It was just blah. And that is really, really upsetting to me. The reason for that being, I've mentioned many times before, I am a classically trained musician and vocalist. And I've spent years perfecting my voice and learning how to use it correctly. And I was, for a very, very short time, I was a professional jazz singer. And I used it on stage. Like, I have always been very proud of my vocal abilities. And to be blunt, the two songs that I've covered thus far have made me ashamed of my voice and of those two videos in particular. And the reason why is going all the way back to, I think it was 7th or 8th grade. We'll go a little bit further back. In 6th grade, the way that the school system I lived in worked was from kindergarten through 4th grade, there was actually two different schools depending on which side of the city you lived in. And then when you got to 5th grade, there was a single school for all 5th graders in the district. And so then after that, you went to the middle school, which is 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And there was only one middle school for all the kids in the district. So I started playing saxophone when I was in the 5th grade. And then in 6th grade, we had a band director that ran a jazz program. And it was an audition-only band. And both my father and my mother had played jazz when they were in high school. My mom played clarinet, and I think she doubled sax every so often. And my dad played tenor and bari sax. So, and I'd grown up on jazz. So I auditioned in 6th grade, and there was no guarantee that 6th graders would make it into the jazz band. It was generally 7th and 8th graders. And it was one of the best, it was one of the best jazz just non-college level jazz bands in the state. And when I say that, I mean we went to jazz competitions and did better than high school bands. So 6th grade, I get into it, and I'm really, really thrilled. I have to switch from alto sax to tenor sax. But I was actually fine with that because I liked the tenor sax better, just in every way, shape, or form. Alto's great, don't get me wrong, but I really like my tenor sax. Well, in either 7th or 8th grade, I can't remember, there was this professional jazz clarinetist who was friends with our director. His name was Chuck Hedges. He's a brilliant, well, he was, he's passed away, unfortunately. He was a brilliant jazz player in general. He lived in Chicago, and since I was in Wisconsin, it was a quick drive to get there. We actually got to go down to the jazz club that he was a regular in, and we got to perform in a Chicago jazz club. We did, I think, like a 30-minute, or I think it was like a 30-minute or an hour long set, which is insane. You don't get middle schoolers in professional jazz clubs. You just don't. We got to play with Chuck, and he was amazing. But anyway, later on in that year, Chuck was going to come back to Wisconsin and play a show with us, and we were just kind of talking about stuff, and he said, never perform anything less than your best, anytime. Because I think a couple kids were going, well, compared to playing in an actual jazz club in Chicago, I mean, this is nothing. Really doesn't matter. It's just going to be our parents. And he goes, no, never ever perform at anything less than your best. Every performance you ever do should be the absolute best you can possibly have in that particular situation. Because someone is going to be introduced to you for the first time. Somehow. Always assume this is going to be the first impression of someone. So every single performance has to be the best you can do in that performance. And it took a long time for me to really unpack that. Because depending on how you take it, that can be very kind of toxic advice. The idea that you are never allowed to perform unless you're at the peak of your ability is not a good thing. It puts in an immense amount of pressure on you to achieve perfection. Perfection is impossible. It doesn't matter if you were the most skilled person in the world in your particular field, you will never achieve perfection. That's the thing about perfection. It is unobtainable. So if you take it at kind of face value, it's really bad advice, especially for a bunch of kids that are like 11, 12 years old. That's a horrible thing to tell them. You can never perform unless you're at your absolute peak. But that wasn't what he meant. And I don't know when I finally understood this, but it's one of the kind of core philosophies I have. You'll never achieve perfection. But every performance you do, you must put in the effort and put in the work for it to be the best performance you could possibly do in those circumstances. So it doesn't mean you have to be at your pinnacle at perfection every single time, but anytime you perform for any sort of an audience, you need to treat it like it matters, like this is going to be your best performance you could have. That's what that actually means, and that's what he was trying to tell us, is never undervalue a performance. Ever. It doesn't matter if you're playing for one person or for a billion. As a performer, as a musician, you should always approach every single performance as I'm going to give absolutely everything I can to make this as good as it can possibly be in this situation. Now, does it mean you're always going to do the absolute best? No. If you physically can't give all of your energy to a performance, it's perfectly fine. Set the standards. Understand that There are certain situations where it's just not going to work. I've done outdoor concerts. Outdoor concerts, especially in Wisconsin, outdoor concerts are a pain in the ass because things go wrong constantly. And depending on what's going on and whether or not you're in a band shell or you have to create your own band shell, like you'll get weird echoes and sometimes you won't be able to hear yourself and sometimes you won't be able to hear the band despite the fact that it's behind you and blowing all of its sound towards you. If there's nothing for it to reflect off of, it comes off as really weird and hard to understand. Or what's even more fun is if you have an entire big band behind you and then a flat surface like 100 feet away, or 200 or 300 feet away is a little more accurate, because what happens is the sound goes from the band, it hits the back wall, it reflects right back at you, and you get an echo that is time delayed like a second or so. And it is unbelievably confusing. So, again, the idea is not you can never perform if you're not going to do perfection. It is every performance you should be putting forth the effort that this is going to be the best performance you can. And if there are situations where you simply can't put forth that effort, maybe that isn't a performance you should take. And I really don't think either of those performances were anywhere near the best I could do. For a number of reasons. First things first, I started practicing and rehearsing this about a month and a half, maybe to 2 months ago. I had this idea, I was like, wow, this would be really fun. And I started looking into accompaniment tracks, and I thought it'd be really fun to cover a song a day for a month. That would be an amazing experience. But because of my mental health and just everything that's going on, I have not been actively singing in over a year. Probably the last time I was singing regularly was back when Twitch Sings still existed, and we're going on almost 2 years now. So my voice, just like any other muscle that you don't train for 2 years, my voice is just not where it used to be. Which is okay. It doesn't mean that I can't sing. It means that I don't have the control that I used to have. However, I approached these songs under the idea that I had that control and that I could do the things that I used to be able to do, and I couldn't. And so, just like someone who hasn't run a marathon in 5 years getting up and just deciding one day to go run a marathon, things are going to go very, very poorly. And that's 100% what happened with these songs. My pitch, I have perfect pitch. Singing out of tune, anything being out of tune drives me crazy. And I was not hitting the pitches correctly. And that is what I consider, as far as musicianship is. Playing in tune and playing the right notes is your barrier to entry before you can perform. It's not this is something you can work on. No, before you get on stage, you have to at least hit the notes right. And anyone that is incapable of hitting the right notes in a song that they are performing for an audience needs to spend more time rehearsing this song. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a ding. Again, I have been singing for 15, 20 years. I've had private voice lessons. I went to college. I minored in vocal performance my first time. And the people that I worked with were some of the finest musicians I have ever met in my life. So it's not that I didn't know what I was doing or anything. I just didn't do it. I didn't put forth the effort required. In addition to that, this has been weighing really heavily on my anxiety and depression which is made worse significantly by the fact that this time of year is when bad things happen in my life. I was committed to. Thank you, phone. I was committed to a mental hospital around this time, years ago, where the doctor nearly killed me because he was a dickwad and didn't listen to me when I said, "Hey, I really don't do well on antidepressants and anti-anxieties." Surprisingly enough, we found out it's because they kill me. It's weird. We lost my childhood dog. We had to put him to sleep right around this time. My father was diagnosed with cancer right around this time. Yeah, I know. The wife of one of my friends and teachers in high school passed away right around this time. So this is a really, really bad time for me. And then combine that with the fact that my teacher, that his wife passed away years ago around this time, just died. He was unfortunately hit by a car, and was pronounced dead at the scene. So this is already a bad time of a year for me, and then I added on this immense amount of pressure of doing something that I'm in no way prepared for and giving it a time limit. And so I started falling into this really bad depressive spiral, and my anxiety would just spike for hours at a time. I would have panic attacks, which would turn into these weird kind of rage-filled moments where I was just extremely angry and wanting to break something, and having nothing that I can break in my room. And so yeah, all that combined with the time limit and everything, I would, the first song I recorded, I think 4 or 5 times, to try and get it right, and I just couldn't. And so I just went, you know what, fuck it. I have 2 hours before this day is over. I'm not going to miss a day. I'm just going to upload it, and the next one will be better. And then I go to record the next one. And I tried doing multiple recordings of it, and I just couldn't. I couldn't remember the lyrics half the time. I couldn't get the pitches right. I think the one that I did, I think for the most part I got all the pitches right, but my tone quality sucked. There was very little emotion in it, and that's something that I focus on extensively when I'm singing, is I try to put as much emotion. That's the whole actor in me. It was a really, really bad performance that I'm not proud of. So, going forward for the rest of the Daily December, I'm still planning on covering more songs. But, not only do I not think it's healthy for me to do it, I don't think it's possible for me to cover a song a day. Again, vocally, I have to put a lot more work into bringing my voice back up to where it used to be. And something that a lot of people don't realize, singing is a remarkably demanding thing, and a lot of people kind of undervalue just how difficult it is to sing well, simply because everybody uses, or almost everybody uses, their voice all the time. Like, it is a primary form of communication. They're just like, well, just sing. Like, it's not that hard. Obviously, it's harder than speaking, but no, it takes an unbelievably large amount of work and effort and knowledge to be able to do things. And a lot of things, like, a vocalist will watch a performance and be impressed by significantly different things than a than a non-vocalist. My favorite example is Idina Menzel. Idina Menzel is a brilliant, brilliant vocalist. But the thing that people are most impressed with her is when in something like Let It Go, she does these unbelievable power belting notes. You know, just this crazy, or Wicked was where she became real famous for it, because at the end of Defying Gravity, she does this and she just belts this unbelievably high, amazing note, and that is very difficult. I'm not going to say it's not, but belting in general, well, I guess that belting in general is a trick. And what I mean by that is belting is a learned skill. It's not something that everyone can do, and it also takes a particular voice range. Theoretically, everyone can belt, because belting is basically just singing very strongly from right in your chest voice. That's what belting is, and that's what Idina Menzel does so well. For her, though, the thing that makes it so impressive is the fact that her chest voice can go so high that she can belt these notes that most other singers have to switch into their head voice, or even into falsetto. So that in and of itself is very impressive. But from a technical aspect, it's not a difficult thing to do. From just a the fact that she can do it, it's very impressive. But it's not a technical skill. It is more of like an endurance based thing. It's kind of kind of equivalent to running a marathon. The impressive thing and the most difficult thing about running a marathon is not knowing how to run really fast or being able to move in certain ways. No, it's understanding your body enough that you can sustain a pace long enough to make it 26 and a half miles. And that's what belting is. It's strength training effectively for your voice. And when you do it poorly, you can completely destroy your voice. However, to me, what is significantly more impressive is someone like Celine Dion or Ariana Grande. Despite the fact that I'm not a huge fan of Ariana Grande's music in general, they both have this unbelievable control, and it shows up specifically when you start seeing them do these weird kind of runs that people really love, but a lot of people don't just realize exactly why it is so impressive that they can do this. I used to sing a song called Honor in Arms. It's an oratorio piece from, I believe it's Haydn wrote it. And the piece that it's from is from the story of Samson. Samson's a character in the Old Testament. He was an Israelite that was known to, he was basically the Israelite version of Hercules. He was unnaturally strong, and his strength was tied to his hair. He never cut his hair, and as long as God had made a deal with him, as long as you never cut your hair, you will always be strong. So that's the story of Samson. And so I can't remember who it was. It was probably the Philistines, because the Philistines were always the bad guys in that part of the Bible. But they couldn't beat the guy. And so they had this woman go and seduce him and try and figure out what his what it was that would make him weak, how he was so strong. And the funny thing about this story is she comes in, I can't remember the character's name anymore, but she comes in, and she seduces him, and then, when they're getting all lovey-dovey, she's like, tell me your secret. And I think it's either 2 or 3 times he tells her a complete bold-faced lie. And she doesn't confirm it or anything. She just goes immediately back to the bad guys and goes, oh, if you do this, then he won't be strung. I think like one of them is if you weave my hair into something is one of the things he said. And so sure enough, he wakes up one day and his hair is woven into something. And then the bad guys show up, just surprisingly. And he beats the snot out of them because it wasn't real. And it happens like 2 or 3 times where he tells this woman something completely wrong, and magically the bad guys figure it out, and he doesn't suspect a damn thing. So he's kind of a dipshit. Eventually, though, he relents, says, it's my hair. If you cut my hair, I won't have it, because he was a dipshit. And I am totally butchering this story, by the way. It's significantly better told in the Bible, and there's a moral and everything to it. It's a great story. Setting up the song that I used to do. So anyway, she cuts his hair, and sure enough, all of his strength is gone. And he gets captured, he gets chained up, and they bring in this kind of general for the bad guys that, again, I can't remember the character's name anymore. But they say, hey, you need to kill him. And this this bad guy has this kind of moral quandary because he can kill an incredibly mighty opponent, which is a good thing, but this is an opponent that is not even at less than his best. He has been stripped of all the power and abilities that he has ever relied on. And so the song Honor in Arms is this character kind of voicing this idea of, yeah, I could kill you in a single blow. But what honor is there in that? Like, you are absolutely nothing at this point. They've taken everything from you. You are chained between a pair of pillars. There's absolutely no honor in it. And so there's this run. Because the song goes, honor and arms, scorn such a blow, scorn such a blow. But there's this part kind of a little after the middle where he goes, in thy overthrow. And I didn't get any of those notes right, by the way. But that is the part, because I used to do it for this thing called Solo in an Ensemble, which was the dumbest thing in the world, and I despised it. It was basically you would go and you would perform these very technical, very difficult songs for a judge, and then they'd sit there and say, well, you did very good. Now you can go to state, and then there you just play the same stupid song again, and then we blow smoke up your ass. Does that sound good to you? Yeah. And so for Solo in an Ensemble, that was the part that they looked at, because when you are singing, the way that your vocal cords work is you kind of stretch and you lengthen and shorten them to get the different notes. And in between the various lengths, if the air is constantly going over it, you're going to hear a slide. In instrumental music, we call it a glissando. But basically it's like, oh, that's a glissando. However, if you want to hit specific notes, like the that requires a significant amount of control, because it's not just going where you can hear everything between. You're just stopping in the note. You're literally shortening and lengthening your vocal cords instantly to the exact right place, and it takes an unbelievable amount of control. And so one of the easiest ways to tell kind of a lower skilled vocalist from a very, very highly skilled vocalist is how they deal with runs like that. Like I showed you before, if you stop the air anyway, like a really common way is just to put an H behind whatever you're saying. So, because that little break where you're going, that's enough time to move your vocal cords, and you never hear the note in between. The other way that I did was where you just stop singing. You actually use your epiglottis for that. It's called a glottal stop. It's actually not great for your voice, but it's an effective way to do it. But it's effectively cheating because you're giving yourself extra time. And so when I was learning this song, that was the thing that I had to rehearse over and over and over and over again for hours. Just going, in thy overthrow, and just over and over and over and over, because that was the most difficult. It wasn't the honor and arms. That sounds really cool. It sounds really loud, and in my particular vocal range, it sounds great, especially if I could actually get the breath support under it. I can't in this chair. We'll talk about that in just a second. But that's not the impressive part for someone that understands how the voice works. The impressive part is just going these little because that takes unbelievable amounts of control. And I used to be able to do that. I used to be able to do a lot more than that. And that's what makes Ariana Grande so impressive. You listen to the little... the term I'm most familiar with is noodling. And that's a jazz term. I don't know if there's an actual name for it. But when you hear her go... and there's all those different notes, it's because she is unbelievably skilled. The same is true of Celine Dion. She can do these unbelievable, and she hits every note perfectly all the way, and just jumps between notes and jumps, these really, really large jumps. The larger the jump between notes, the more difficult it is, because you have to go from like this big to this big to this big, and it's very, very... So anyway, going back to what's been going on. I have been dreading all of these songs. Like I'm so upset with just how poorly I have done, and every single time I recorded it again, I would just get more upset because I just couldn't get a recording that was good. And part of that was, again, I haven't put in enough work to be able to sing at that level. It's not that I'm a bad singer, but I'm singing songs that are not designed for someone with my voice type. And I'm transposing them, and I'm trying to do things like octave jumps and things which are very highly skilled things that I just don't have the skill for right now. And this chair, I love this chair. Don't get me wrong. This is a wonderful chair. It is a recliner. It has all these cool things. Like I can make the headrest go up and back, and it reclines fully back. It's all electric. It's got lights. You can't see any of the lights. It's got cup holders. I even have, let's see if I can pull this off. I even have this little tray table so that I can have my keyboard and mouse. I have two of them, and they rotate. So I can have my keyboard and mouse right here. It's really, really nice. I love this chair. However, recliners are not built to sing. And just because of how I sit in it, which is one of the things that makes it so comfortable for me, because I'm a very, very tall person. And so most chairs, when I sit in them, my knees and legs are bent up at an angle like this, where these are my knees, because my legs are just too long and the chair is too low for the ground for me, and it's really uncomfortable. Well, it's kind of a bucket seat thing, so you kind of sit back and your legs are up a little bit. Because of that, my normal person, their feet would be dangling. Mine lay flat on the floor, and it's very nice. But because of that, it compresses my diaphragm, and it prevents, and I also have a lot of fat and stuff around there, so it forces all of my fat and internal organs into compressing my diaphragm. What that does is it means I cannot get the breath support that is required to sing most of these songs the way that they need to be sung, especially when you start singing at the extremes of your range. You have to increase the amount of breath support you have and increase the amount of air you're kind of pushing through your vocal cords to get the notes to sound good. And I physically cannot do that while sitting. And I tried a bunch of different ways to do this. I tried standing behind my chair. My my arm here is not, like you'll see it here, because I live in a basement and everything is sloped towards the drains. The bookcase that I have it on is sloped just ever so slightly, so when it's in, I'll move this back, when it's in a normal spot where I normally keep it, it works perfectly fine. But if I put it to any sort of extreme, like putting the mic far enough out that I could stand behind my chair, it slowly moves back, and so I couldn't do that. I tried sitting way up close, like doing here at the very edge of it, so I could get better, and this just feels weird to me, and I don't get picked up by the mic the right way, and everything about this is just wrong. Like, I tried so many different things, and I thought if I just like expanded my rib cage and had that good posture that I'm used to doing when I sing, it would work, and it didn't. And so, especially Torn yesterday just sounded like shit. Probably one of the worst performances I've ever put up. And that saying this is something for me. So, yeah, I because of how the Daily December was going this year, it didn't look like I was going to be able to have, like, every December I have these long kind of rambly videos where I talk about nonsense for a while. And because all I was doing was the covers, it was seeming like I wasn't going to get a chance to do that. And so, as I mentioned when I first started this nonsense of an adventure, I wasn't sure how this was going to go. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it. Well, it turns out I'm not. I can't. So, that particular aspect of Daily December this year is being put to rest. It's not to say I'm not going to do any more covers for the rest of the year. I actually have a duet that I'm hoping I'll be able to get up and upload for one of my Daily Decembers, because I'm singing with someone that I absolutely adore singing with, and I don't think you guys have ever seen me sing with them before. So I really hope that happens, and if it doesn't, that's perfectly fine. You know, everybody has lives and things like that. But I want to get that out, and I have a couple other songs that I want to cover. But in order to do them, I have to record them differently. I need to be standing, because I don't have the control anymore to be able to do most of my singing sitting down. I could years ago. I can't anymore. And because of that, I have to come up with a different way to film things. I may stop doing video for those covers and just have it audio. I don't know. My filming setup has never been ideal. Oh, and moving this chair, not happening. This is like 150 or 200 pound beast of a chair. And the only person that might be able to help me move it is my brother, who has who hurt his back years ago. Like, he has back problems, and so we were able to get it down the stairs when we first moved in, and I think we had like 2 other people helping us do that. So yeah, moving this around and fucking with stuff like that is just not something I want to play with. Um, especially since it also means like because the house that we live in and now everything was kind of done by the person that lived here previously, because he was remarkably talented kind of craftsman and handyman kind of thing. So he finished the basement himself, and for whatever reason he didn't glue the carpet down. So when heavy things move on the carpet, the whole carpet shifts. And that is a nightmare that I do not want to try and play with. I have enough really heavy things in the carpet that I could probably move this chair, like just push it out of the way without too much data difficulty, but I don't want to risk it, especially since this carpet is old and it needs to be replaced eventually anyways, and we don't have the money for that, nor will we for years. But anyway, so I wanted to talk about what's been going on, why you're going to see less covers, not no covers. I'm going to still do at least one a week. If I can pull off more, I will. But I don't want to miss a daily December, because last year I got every single one out on December. I was very proud of that. So I don't want to miss a daily December, and I don't. I also don't want to just keep putting out shit, because I'm very proud of the work that I put into developing my voice, and I was hoping that this would give me a chance to show that off. And thus far, the only thing I've shown off is that I can't sing, and that's not what I want. I want to be able to show people some of the cool stuff you can do with a low voice that you can't do if you're singing high. I want to show some of the range that I have, and all that's going to require a lot more work. So anyway, if you do want to see a version of Daily December, she's not calling it Daily December, but my friend Kiri Callaghan, I've talked about her before. She's wonderful and amazing. My friend Kiri is doing her own version of Daily December, and she's doing it a hell of a lot better than I am. So I'm actually going to link her channel in the description. If you're not subscribed to her, you need to be, because she's amazing and awesome and puts out wonderful, amazing stuff. So yeah, go check out Kiri for significantly better Daily December stuff, and then come back here and watch me fail repeatedly. That's going to be all for me today. I'm probably going to go back to bed shortly after this, because I still feel like crap, and I haven't eaten in a day and a half at this point, because anxiety-induced food poisoning is fun. I really hate my life. Anyway, it's all for me. See you guys next time. Alright, bye-bye.